Want to take you live now to APD headquarters, where Austin police are talking about that officer-involved shooting last Friday. Let's listen in.
Contact with us regarding the ongoing investigations. Chief Acevedo and the Austin Police Department would like to extend our condolences to the family of Larry Eugene Jackson Jr. Anytime a life is lost, it's tragic, and we understand emotions are high, and we ask everyone to allow this case to go through the investigative process. The Austin Police Department is committed to doing a thorough and comprehensive investigation into this incident, which will include a criminal investigation conducted by our Special Investigations Unit, along with the Travis County Assistant District Attorney's Office. We will also have an administrative investigation conducted by the Austin Police Department Internal Affairs Division, which will be monitored by the Office of the Police Monitor. On July 26th, APD Detective Charles Kleinert was at the Benchmark Bank located at 1508 West 35th Street conducting follow-up investigation on a bank robbery that had occurred earlier that day. Detective Kleinert was in plain clothes and displaying his Austin Police Department credentials on his shirt collar. While Detective Kleinert was conducting follow-up, Mr. Larry Jackson came to the front doors of the bank and attempted to open them. This happened at 4:04 p.m. and the doors were locked based on the earlier robbery that had taken place that day. Mr. Jackson leaves, but returns a minute later and again attempts to open the doors at that time. At this point, a bank employee comes to the front door, unlocks it, and goes out front to speak with Mr. Jackson. According to this bank employee, Mr. Jackson provided fictitious identification. The bank employee went back inside the bank and notified Detective Kleinert of her suspicions. While we understand there is a belief in the community that Mr. Jackson was at the bank to conduct legitimate bank business, we have specific information regarding the fictitious identification and that Mr. Jackson was at the bank in an attempt to commit a fraud. We cannot give any additional information at this point regarding the specific details to protect the integrity of witness statements that we have not yet taken regarding this part of the investigation. Detective Kleinert goes outside to speak with Mr. Jackson, and after 2 to 3 minutes, Mr. Jackson flees on foot. Detective Kleinert pursues Mr. Jackson on foot, and at one point during the foot pursuit, he stops a motorist and employs their aid to catch up to Mr. Jackson. Regardless of the reason for the foot pursuit, the response to resistance will be investigated for compliance with state law and departmental policy. Detective Kleinert ends up in a struggle with Mr. Jackson under the bridge over Shoal Creek. During the struggle, Detective Kleinert's weapon discharges one time, fatally striking Mr. Jackson in the back of the neck. Part of the ongoing investigation will focus on whether his weapon discharged intentionally or accidentally. We still have several interviews to conduct in this investigation and cannot provide any additional information at this time regarding the struggle that took place between Detective Kleinert and Mr. Jackson.
Are you open for questions?
Yes.
Are we doing questions now?
Yes.
Sorry. The gun, was it still in the officer's holster when it went off?
We do not believe the gun was in the officer's holster when it went off.
Are you aware if Mr. Jackson had a weapon at all?
We did not locate a weapon on Mr. Jackson or at the scene of the incident.
So if lethal force was used because it was a necessity, what led to the lethal force?
That'll be part of the ongoing investigation. We don't have enough information at this point to determine that.
When the detective began the chase, at that time, did he suspect Mr. Jackson was committing a fraud already, or did you guys come to that conclusion in your investigation afterwards?
We know that the bank manager went back in and spoke to Detective Kleinert regarding the suspicions she had after her interaction with Mr. Jackson. When we conduct further interviews, we'll know a little bit more about that conversation, but at this point we believe he was aware that something suspicious was going on with Mr. Jackson.
So on Friday, you guys kept saying that he misidentified himself. How did he misidentify himself?
Again, as I stated, we have some critical witnesses we have not yet spoken to about that part of the investigation. We are, however, confident that he was at the bank in an attempt to defraud them.
Have you identified the witness?
We have not yet identified that witness, so the public's assistance is still greatly needed in that area if they can help us with that.
So you said he had a fake ID.
He had identified himself fictitiously. We're not going into the specific facts of how he did that.
When was the victim's family notified?
The victim's family was notified over the weekend. I don't have the exact date.
When you say there's a witness out there, where was the witness with regards to this situation?
We don't want to go into that specifically now because we've not yet had an opportunity to identify that individual or take a statement from them.
How can a person be shot accidentally in the back of the neck?
Again, the facts surrounding the actual shooting will be determined after we've conducted additional investigation. We do not yet have enough facts to speculate on that.
Was the man that was shot and killed in any way connected to the initial bank robbery that was being investigated, or are you ruling out that connection?
We do not believe there is any connection between the bank robbery that took place that morning and the incident involving Mr. Jackson the afternoon.
Do you have any idea why he felt he needed to chase him?
Well, again, I think that's based on the information that the bank manager went in and provided to him. Right. And again, once we take additional statements, we will have a better idea of what his intentions were.
Do you know if Mr. Jackson had an account at the bank?
I do not have information on that at this point.
Can you explain how the bank employee would help? How was their intuition that he was there to commit a fraud of some kind?
Again, that's going to be specific to some statements we still have to take, so we're not going to go into all the reasons behind why we believe that, but we are confident that the bank employee's suspicions were legitimate.
So what can you tell the community so that people feel more at peace, because when has running become a crime or misidentifying yourself?
Well, again, without going into the specifics of the incident, although running is not a crime, it's also never really a good idea to run from the police. It's just the best idea if you're involved with a police officer, talking with a police officer, running from the police is never a good idea.
Has the officer been interviewed by Internal Affairs? Is he already undergone?
We're still working through all the interview processes.
What's the officer's status right now?
The officer is on restricted duty with pay.
What does that mean?
That means that he is not reporting to work at this time. However, he is receiving pay while we are conducting the investigation.
There were several protests
that last week.
We make that on a case-by-case basis as we work our way through the investigation. We reevaluate at what point we would bring an individual involved in a critical incident back to work.
Why would he ask for help when this guy takes off? Why wouldn't he ask for any of his fellow officers to come with him?
Again, that'll be part of the follow-up that we conduct as we take more statements. What was his mindset and reasonings for the actions that he took.
How long has this officer been on the force?
It is not clear at this point if the weapon was in the officer's or the suspect's hand. Again, we don't have the specifics on the struggle that took place under the bridge yet.
We'll take one more question.
All right, we have been listening to Austin Police Assistant Chief Brian Manley talk about Friday's officer-involved shooting that took the life of 32-year-old Larry Jackson Jr. We are going to have much more on this, and we're going to bring you the rest of Assistant Chief Manley's comments coming up tonight on KXAN News at 6. I also sat down with Austin Police Monitor Margot Frazier today. We're going to hear some very interesting comments from her as well.
Okay, continuing coverage, of course, on KXAN.com.